Good morning. Today is Wednesday. We're in the fourth week of Ordinary Time. We've got a few more weeks until Ash Wednesday and the Lent for this year. This morning's reading is from the Gospel of Mark, and hopefully there are a few things in here that we can think about through the week and help us with just trying to figure out a little bit more about our faith in God. These certainly are challenging times. Hopefully you're feeling a little relief. The infection rate is down significantly, and we've got the vaccines now that are slowly inching their way we're inching into the next phase of eligibility for a vaccine. Hopefully we can get that as soon as possible and have a little more protection from the threat of this very serious virus. So good morning to you. I'm sorry we're not in church together, but hopefully I'm scheduled to be back in the church the first week in March. We'll see. Hopefully that will go well for all of us. God bless, and let's go to the Gospel of Mark here. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus departed from there and came to his native place, accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What kind of wisdom has been given to him? What mighty deeds are wrought by his hands? Is he not the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his native place, and among his own kin, and in his own house." So he was not able to perform any mighty deed there, apart from curing a few sick people by laying his hands on them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. Wow. What if Jesus came back to Holy Name Parish? And what if he had grown up in West Roxbury? What would we say about him? Would we run him out of town like his own friends and neighbors did? What an interesting story. So let's take a little shot at trying to decipher how this can mean something important to each one of us. This week, during our Gospel of Mark Scripture Hour, we get together on Monday nights at 6. Everybody's welcome. During Lent, we're going to go into the suffering and death of Jesus in the Gospels that surround that event on Good Friday. So if you're interested, just look at the bulletin and you'll see how to sign up. We'd love to have you join us. But as we were going through chapter 14 in particular of the Gospel of Mark, we're studying Mark right now, the chapter tells us about the Last Supper and the agony in the garden in Gethsemane. One line that really struck me Monday night on this reading happened after Jesus told his disciples what was going to happen to him. Peter spoke up and said, "Even though all should have their faith shaken, mine will not be." A little later, Mark writes that they, all the disciples, and the quote is, all spoke similarly. They all felt the same way. Yet, we know that just a few hours later in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Judas betrayed Jesus and when the crowd seized Jesus, these same men left him and fled. They just took off. The apostles were so sure of their faith in this man one minute, and when they were tested, they scooted. They abandoned him. In our reading today, the hometown crowd was so positive in their comments about the wisdom of this preacher that they all knew. They were astonished by his words and by the story of his wondrous deeds. But then they reverted back to gossip and skepticism and ran him out of town. It's like they started to believe, and then the doubts crawled into their heads, and they convinced themselves that what they saw and heard did not actually happen. Why do we push back with doubt and skepticism on things that we hear? Good things about people or good things that might happen to us in the future. I find myself doing it often. My first reaction is sometimes doubt rather than hope. Why did the apostles run away? Why did the neighbors discredit Jesus? Because they knew where he was from. Why did they belittle his wisdom and his faith? Do we intentionally decide to reject the good news about someone? Or do we just kind of, through our human nature, default to the common, ordinary expectations we assume from our ordinary life experiences? Do we think for ourselves and have confidence to hold on to our thoughts? Or do we fall back into thinking similarly? Do we dig deeper and search for value or truth or meaning in our day-to-day routines? Do we trust ourselves to look for the good, to look to hope and dreams and embrace them? Would we have stayed after the service on that Sabbath and talked to Jesus to tell him we were very impressed with his sermon? That would be at the risk of the criticism from our friends and neighbors? Or would we just have joined the crowd? If we were in the Garden of Gethsemane, would we have stayed with Jesus and went with him after he was seized? And would we suffer some of the violence and endured the scorn of people we knew? Maybe even physical harm from the crowd that wanted to harm our friend? Or what about now? In the pandemic world we live in today, are we wearing our masks? Are we keeping social distancing? Are we accepting our positive moral obligation and signing up to get our vaccine? I hope so. I hope we're doing all of those things, even if some people might belittle us or make fun of us. I often wonder what I would do when I find a challenge to deeply believe, to accept a tough position, to follow the truth of Jesus Christ, or just do similarly, just do the easy thing. Or if I would recognize the little things, the little challenges in my day, and discern the right thing to do, stop and look at it, and try to figure out the right thing to do. Or just do what's easy and comfortable. I wonder, would Jesus be amazed at my faith? I hope so. And I hope he's amazed at yours too. There you go, a few things to think about. Thank you very much for listening. Just listening shows your interest in the words of Jesus Christ and trying to think about what he's telling us. It's important, and it helps lift us up on some of these challenging days with some of these challenging obstacles in front of us. God bless you. Stay safe, and I hope to see you next week.